I remember listening to the oral arguments when Justice Thomas raised a pretty troubling question. He asked whether the arguments made by Tennessee to justify SB 1 could equally apply to the context of adults. The Solicitor General just said no, essentially, in so many words, and then alarmingly, the Tennessee Solicitor General said yes. So it's just, I feel like that's signaling what's going to happen.
It
right?
will be open season on trans adults. There's no doubt about it, and
Yeah.
that's why I was there. That's why I went back to D.C. and I sat there and watched Thomas ask that question.
It's frightening.
Tell us about that day.
So I got there at 4 a.m. I was 4 a.m. and I was number 12 in line.
Wow.
So there were two people arguing on behalf of the plaintiffs. One was the Solicitor General, Elizabeth Proligar, but the other one was Chase B. Strangio, is it?
Yes.
Could you tell us about Strangio?
Yeah, Chase is a lawyer for the ACLU out of New York City who has been tirelessly working on these cases across the country, appearing in district courts and courts of appeal, arguing these issues. And Chase was the first openly transgender individual to argue a case before the Supreme Court. And being able to be there to witness that was just something that for me was, because it was historic. There were more trans people in that courtroom than there had ever been in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court. Wow. Because there were trans lawyers arguing the case. There were trans reporters who were covering the case for various media. There were trans lawyers who were admitted to practice before the court. There were trans kids who were the subject of the lawsuit and other trans kids who had testified previously in Tennessee against these bills. So there was a very large contingent of trans people in that courtroom, which I think was a historic first. And I had made a promise to the kids here in Nebraska and their families that I was going to be there and I was going to look every one of those Supreme Court justices in the eye. The SCOTUS blog, which is like the blog for Supreme Court nerds.
Love them, yeah.
If you're a big fan of the Supreme Court and want to follow what's going on with everything Supreme Court, the SCOTUS blog is it. And their reporter noticed in the attorney section and did a shout out to us for being there and representing. And it was a long day. By the time I got home to LA and got to bed, I think it had been for me 26 hours